Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be discussing something a little different for the channel. You know, it's not entirely Chelsea based, but we're going to be talking about Frank Lampard being appointed as the Everton boss. Now, initially, you know, obviously Chelsea fans are the only ones other than Derby that have experienced, you know, Lampard in the Prem. Obviously as a manager, not as a player. And I want to just give a little bit of perspective on where I think this one's going to go. Now, I'm a little bit tentative because I want Lampard to succeed. I want him to do very well. Obviously, the legend that he is at our club. But just as a human being, he seems like a really great person. So I want him to do well in his managerial career. Eventually, maybe have a return to Chelsea. I'd love to see that. For any long-term viewers, you'll know I didn't want him sacked when he was at Chelsea. But we've gone on to do some bigger and better things since then. So it's all worked out. But the Everton appointment, now, we all knew the Rafa situation was never going to go well. It would go well as long as they were winning things, but the second that they stopped doing well, it was destined for failure because those fans were going to turn on him at the drop of a hat, and that is what happened. And rightfully so, you know, there's a rich history with Rafa and Liverpool, of course, and he said some things about Everton that they will not be happy with. So I understand that completely. But now Lampard's taking over. Now we'll take a look at his history with Chelsea. How did he do in the 1.5 roughly seasons that he had with us? Of course, everyone knows the first year. Chelsea fans rattle on about it that enjoyed Lampard's tenure at the club. We got top 4. We lost Hazard in the middle of a transfer ban. Brought in some great youth players that have gone on. You know, what is the value of Mason Mount, Reece James, all these players now? You know, they're worth a lot of money. Did some really great things for the club. The second season, form started going a little bit down the pan. When he was sacked, I think we were in 9th position, somewhere around there. Realistically, not that far off top 4 and stuff. Like, had we gone on a run of winning 4 or 5 games, then we very well would have been up in and around top 4 again. So it could have turned, but the board decided now's a good time to get rid of him. And that is what it is. It's in the past. So rival fans that want to get under the skin of Chelsea fans, they'll say it was a failure, that he failed at Chelsea, he's not a good manager. There's aspects of his game that need to improve. I certainly agree with that, in that I think his defensive tactics need improvement. Set pieces defensively. Of course, we had certain players that it was really not going well with, namely Kepa. He was obviously one of the biggest scapegoats during that time. He was in abysmal form. Maybe that's something Lampard could have done better with, you know, in an alternative timeline. Did he treat Kepa differently? Maybe he was harsher. I don't know what he was like with Kepa, but let's say he was quite harsh with him. Which very well may not be in the case. I want to prioritize that people understand this is speculation. Let's say he treated Kepa harshly and was rough with him, saying you need to improve, you know, harsh on him and train him, making sure that he tries to get the best out of him. Maybe had he been the nicer manager that puts an arm around him, maybe goes to visit him outside of, you know, work times and hangs out with him, tries to get his morale up a bit. Maybe that would have been a better approach. Now, I'm not one to say whether one would have worked and one, you know, would not have worked. But maybe man management is something that he needs to improve on. It's very possible. We had some players that were unhappy at the club during his time there, and ultimately, obviously, it was at the demise of his managerial position. So those are things that he can definitely improve on. Attacking-wise, I think we were pretty decent. We were scoring plenty of goals, but we were shipping plenty of goals as well. So it wasn't an ideal scenario, but attacking was good, defence was poor. So that's one thing he'll need to work on at Everton. Of course, slightly different scenario at Everton. Chelsea are a team that were aspiring for the title. Lampard knew and said many times that it was a multi-year project to try and get us to the levels of Liverpool and City. And we're seeing that a little bit this season. You know, Chelsea, we were in that title race, but we have slipped away again. And it just proves that a little more time, a little more investment, and maybe we could be back to winning Premier League titles as we have been over the past seasons. Everton are 16th at the moment. They're on the verge of a real relegation scrap. You know, they're right down there on 19 points. It's a little difficult to judge because there's teams that have played 22 games. We've played 24 games as Chelsea. There's teams that have played 18 games, such as Burnley. If Burnley win both their games, they're 1 point behind Everton. Now that is a bit of a big if, but you never know. You know, it's possible that Everton really do get pulled down into this relegation scrap. They've got Newcastle next, so that's going to be a big game. His first game in charge, I'm assuming, will be against Newcastle, and that is going to be a vital game. It's a big one to come into the job. If he loses that game, of course, Newcastle have gone and made some big signings in January. It could be very problematic because everyone's tipping Newcastle as one of those teams that go down. With the signings they've made, maybe they get away with it, maybe they stay up. So it's going to be a different sort of fight. With Derby, he was up and around the promotion spots, obviously managed to get into the playoffs, and then eventually lost to Aston Villa, I think it was, on one of the later stages. So it's not really the type of scrap that he's been used to in a managerial fight. Maybe he'll find it easier, not having the pressure of top four and all that sort of stuff. You know, Everton, if we take a look at their league position finishes by season, last season 10th, before 12th, 8th, 7th, 11th, 5th. Like, you're really looking around that 10 spot. You can go a couple below, you could probably go a couple higher, and you'll be fine either way. But Everton are definitely a sort of mid-table club, and that's where he's going to need to get back to. Now, of course, we're over halfway through the season, so at this point, are they going to be able to get up there? Without a good run of form, it's unlikely. So this season, maybe a 13th place finish would be okay, a 14th place finish, something like that. That would be a pretty good achievement, and then build on that for the next seasons. But we all know the problems at Everton go much deeper than who's in charge, you know, who's manager. It's a lot deeper than that. Their structure, they've got fairly wealthy owners, but the boardroom and such, it's not very well functional at Everton. So maybe, you know, this is a deeper problem. Maybe Lampard can't succeed here because it's just not a club that's currently set up for success until some people move on, some people are appointed that are maybe a better fit for the footballing world, more so than a business environment. Looking at the current form table of the Premier League, so how have Everton been doing? They're 17th, obviously out of 20 in the form table, which is dangerous when you're just above the relegation zone and you're in danger of slipping even further down that form table. It's worrying. Everton 17th, Newcastle 16th. So technically Newcastle coming into this game on the better form. They've signed some big players. This could be a resurgence from Newcastle to get out of there, and then that leaves another open spot in the relegation zone. So you're looking at currently Everton's run is win, loss, draw, loss, loss, loss. So they're really on some bad form, and they need to pick it up massively. Otherwise, they're definitely in big trouble. So overall, I want him to do well. I'll be following Everton. I'll be watching their games to get a feeling of how Lampard's doing as the manager. But I'm very worried that if he doesn't do well here, people will see the narrative at Chelsea. They will definitely put it more as it was a failure. He got sacked, which, you know, happens to every manager. Does that make Mourinho a bad manager? You know, all these other great managers that have been at Chelsea and got sacked. It's part of the culture here. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a failure. He had a great first season, was having a struggling January in the second season, and that was it. That was enough for him to go. So, you know, it's going to be a tough job for him. This is a little bit of a make or break for his managerial career for me, and I want to see him succeed, but he's got a lot of work to do at Everton. And of course, they got rid of players like Digne, so they are lacking in some quality. But with players like Calvert-Lewin coming back in after that long-term injury he had, maybe there's enough there to make sure Everton stay up, push towards that mid-table finish, and Lampard can then build on that for the next couple seasons, assuming he stays there for a while. We'll see how it goes. I wish him all the best. Seems weird, you know, me wishing the best for another manager, a different club, but he's got a strong connection to my Chelsea heart, so I do wish him all the best. Let me know what you guys think of how this is going to go for Lampard down in the comment section down below. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you again. Goodbye.